Imagine your life and your child's future changing overnight.
It was her nurse at school said, you know, she's been complaining of her neck being sprained and it's been like about a week. Why don't you get an x-ray? And I was like, you're right. He sent us instantly to the ER, and the ER at the time said, you'll get a call back from oncology.
As a parent, you would do anything to save your child's life. But when it comes to rare forms of pediatric cancer, treatments and research aren't prioritized.
Analogy I give people is like when your child's diagnosed, it's like you're in a burning building and you're like waiting for the fire department to show up, and like there isn't anyone. And so you just like, you might be lucky and get out.
Today on Mom Squad, we introduce you to a girl who is fighting for her life.
I had those days, so stuck in the mundane.
The breakthrough vaccine that could be the answer for kids like her, and what you can do to help. That's today on Mom Squad. Hi everyone, welcome to Mom Squad. I'm Maureen Kyle. As a mother, I am constantly worried about the what ifs in life. Most of the time, it's centered around my child's safety and health. And if you're like me, you've probably wondered, what if they get cancer? Unfortunately, we probably all know someone who has a child battling cancer, whether it's in our own family or in the community. But as a journalist, I've never had my eyes opened more than a little girl named Sasha Friedman. She caught my attention because of her amazing talent and the hope that she has for kids just like her. Before we dive into some amazing breakthrough research and the world of fundraising, I want you to meet her through the first story in our series.
Sasha Friedman is like most 12-year-olds.
Abracadabra.
A budding social media influencer with a busy life.
Video games. I like playing outside.
Much of which has been taken away recently.
I can't do much of that just because I'm fragile.
For this exceptional child is facing a harsh reality.
I've been fighting for 2 years now.
A rare form of cancer called Ewing sarcoma.
It was her nurse at school said, you know, she's been complaining of her neck being sprained and it's been like about a week. Why don't you get an x-ray? And I was like, you're right.
The scans immediately showed a tumor. From there, things moved quickly.
You could see like a ball coming off her rib. And so he sent us instantly to the ER, and the ER at the time said, you'll get a call back from oncology. And I heard the word oncology and I was like, oh my gosh. Because, you know, I feel like as a parent, we have a lot of fears. Like, you know, you might be afraid of like your kid going to school because of the school shootings. You're afraid of this, you know, car wrecks. I never, ever thought of my kids getting cancer.
Over the last 2 years, Sasha has had multiple surgeries to remove tumors that are popping up all over her body, including on her skull. Along the way, Sasha and Julia met other patients fighting the same cancer.
Liv she was 8 years old, and we met her on a plane coming back from Hawaii.
2 girls with the same cancer on the same flight and same row.
Like, me and Mom's seats were right next to her and her mom, which was very crazy. And her mom was like, excuse me, I'm sorry to be weird, but are you Sasha? And I was like, yes, I am.
The 2 girls got close, bonding over their battle. Sadly, Liv passed away last year.
It definitely took like a real piece out of my heart, because some of these people you get very close with, and then when they leave, it can be very sad. I actually got my ears pierced, and one of my piercings is a butterfly, because before she passed away, she said she wanted to come back as a butterfly.
Sasha's fight continued without her friend, but with a new network at the Cleveland Clinic.
And I gotta tell you, I did not expect to run across a superstar in the middle of the lobby.
That's where we first heard her song about Liv, called Live It Up, an impromptu a cappella right after radiation.
Never had those days, so stuck in the mundane. Feels like you go insane if you don't make a change.
Turns out this exceptional little 12-year-old with a golden voice and a rare form of cancer has a budding music career. With songs on Spotify and celebrity encounters.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Very nice to meet you.
But this latest song, Live It Up,
How to live, live, live it up.
means the most to her.
Can't you see? I want my music to like inspire others to live in the moment.
All my friends are turning green.
Just enjoy your time because you have no clue what could happen. And even when you are having a hard time, still enjoy it because there's so much to look forward to.
Even since we've done that interview, Sasha's condition has taken a turn for the worse. The cancer has spread. You just heard her talk about Hope for Kids fighting against Ewing sarcoma. She even plans to upload her song, Live It Up, to Spotify. And for every 1,000,000 streams, she would get $3,000, all of which she plans to donate to cancer research and funding, specifically the Little Warrior Foundation. This grassroots organization is the driving force behind the vaccine being developed by a special team of doctors. This could be the answer for families who are battling Ewing's. I got a chance to talk to Dr. Timothy Chan about his breakthrough research. Here is part 2 of the series.
Never had those days, so stuck in the mundane.
Sasha Friedman has a beautiful voice, a heart of gold, and a body that is in a constant fight against cancer.
She does have 5 nodules in her lungs right now that are on the CT.
I didn't know there was 5. I thought there was 3.
There are 5.
For 2 years now, Sasha has been battling the rare Ewing sarcoma.
I try to focus only on the positives. If there's one person in the world that survived this cancer, like, what did they do? And so Dr. Anderson, in all the forums, if you have a complex case, everyone's like, consult with Dr. Anderson, consult with Dr. Anderson.
Dr. Pete Anderson has a reputation for being the leading expert on Ewing's, and families like of Friedman's flock to the Cleveland Clinic to get treatment from him.
Although I don't do Facebook very often myself, Facebook has made my life much busier because patients will talk to other patients.
In Sasha's case, he treated her tumors using the treatments currently available.
We came up with a special recipe, if you will, but we did that because we know how to cook.
But he, along with Dr. Timothy Chan and other specialists at the clinic, are working on a recipe for something that would be even more effective for kids with Ewing's. Dr. Chan's team has been studying the effects of immunotherapies, allowing the human body to fight against cancer.
In the last 10 years, we've really converted metastatic melanoma to something that's actually survivable. The 5-year survival, for instance, is about 50% now, whereas when we started out, it was maybe 1%.
Using this method, they think they've found the formula that would hit the right targets for pediatric cancer patients, specifically Ewing sarcoma.
The work that we're doing right now, specifically with the Ewing's cancer, is one of the few cancer vaccines now based off of this concept of neoantigens, right? These tumor-specific targets.
The vaccine formula is almost complete. It will then go to the FDA for approval, then to clinical trial.
Now, in terms of neoantigen vaccines, this is seen now as probably one of the top 5 innovations probably for the next 5 to 10 years.
But it wouldn't be available to kids first. The trials are given to adults. Sasha's wait would be years.
She would be on a waiting list like everybody else. And what I tell families like Sasha's, it's important to have the least amount of disease for the longest period of time. She's definitely a good candidate from the markers.
I look so cute.
But Sasha, the girl with the golden voice who found the right team, doesn't have time to spare. What she does have is hope. Maybe for her, but mostly for all the kids battling Ewing's.
Remember the love that lights your way.
The vaccine, that is one of the biggest hopes, I think, because there's really not a lot of funding, especially for pediatric cancer, because there's just not enough funding for it.
You heard Sasha just say there's not a lot of funding for it. One of the challenges Dr. Chan described to us is that pediatric cancer research and trials are among the lowest funded. Basically, federal funding goes to more common cancers, usually found in adults, and big pharmaceutical companies make a bigger profit from those treatments. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are going to introduce you to the mom who started Little Warrior Foundation. She explains why your donations to these grassroots fundraising organizations are a kid's biggest hope. Welcome back. Cancer is the #1 cause of disease-related death in children. 1 in 6 kids diagnosed with cancer will not survive. These statistics are frightening, and for families going through a cancer journey, they hope for a miracle. Sometimes those miracles are funded by families like yours donating to grassroots organizations like Alex's Lemonade Stand or Little Warrior Foundation. If you've been watching this entire episode, you've met Sasha Friedman, a 12-year-old who is fighting for her life, suffering from a rare form of cancer, Ewing sarcoma. Her doctors have spent the last decade developing a possible vaccine that will go to trial sometime this year, but it was all made possible by the fundraising efforts of Little Warrior Foundation. I got a chance to talk with the founder, Maggie Spada, about pediatric cancer funding and why it's not prioritized.
So tell me the origins of Little Warrior Foundation.
So my daughter, Lucy, who is 14 now, was 9 years old when she started limping on a soccer field. We thought she had a stress fracture, but it quickly led to the diagnosis of a rare and aggressive type of childhood cancer, bone cancer, called Ewing sarcoma. So we were thrown into this out of the blue, just like every other parent's story goes. It just sort of strikes, and this is your new normal. Lucy is doing well today, really, I would say against the odds. Her cancer had already spread to her lungs at the time that we found it. So she was metastatic, and we were given about a 20% chance of a 5-year survival at the time of her diagnosis. So I think that's sort of what just threw us into this childhood cancer space. But the origins of the Little Warrior Foundation were really born from that and out of true, I think, anger and outrage at the state of treating childhood cancer. Up to that point, kind of from the outside, our understanding of childhood cancer was that it was mostly survivable. And when you really get into the gritty and you sort of pull out the most common type of childhood cancer, which is, of course, leukemia, you see that children are really getting the short end of the stick, that they're, not only is the treatment brutal, but it really isn't progressing. There's so little research and funding that goes into this space. And so we really viewed it as just like a critical public health issue. Like there needs to be a shot at a cure for these kids, and they need to be prioritized in the same way that adults are. So we were in the throes of her treatment when we threw together a 501c3 and just started asking for help really from our community and those people that loved us and knew us. But over the last 5 years, it's taken on a life of its own. And I think that's because so many people, if you have a kid, if you love a kid, the message resonates. And once you know it, you can't unknow it. And so we've been really fortunate in that regards. We fund research. That's it. So while there are a lot of wonderful organizations that help support families along the way, I always felt like, man, I would give all of this back, all of the stuffed animals and the trips and the bedrooms and all of the lovely things that come at you just for a 5% better prognosis. And the only way to do that is to fund research. So we kind of put our stake in the sand on that. And that's how we started.
Yeah. For any parent, and we've been talking with Julia and Sasha, and for them, I think what's jarring for me as a parent is they're in the right place, they're with the right doctors, and they have this same percentage, a chance for a survival rate. And it just feels like, how are we in the right place and with the right people, but almost the wrong time? Did you feel that way too with the resources that were available?
I think it was just you're absolutely right. You can be with the world's best in treating these cancers, and you're still all in a room, kind of like we're not, it's really like the level of, I think, decision making that falls onto families because the doctors are just kind of like, yeah, we don't know. We don't know. That is, it blows your mind.
Yeah.
You just can't believe that there isn't more for these children and that it's been this way for decades. I mean, it's not like this is some new cancer and we're all going to figure it out in the next 5 years. Nothing's changed in 40 years. That's outrageous. And so I think, I hope that 40 years from now, we planted a tree at the right time and things can progress and hopefully progress quicker than that. Because options, you run out of options pretty much after the first line of treatment. If that cancer comes back, it's a little bit of a guessing game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we talked to Dr. Chan, who also said that thanks to your foundation, he was able to do all the research. They have this vaccine that they're going to try and push forward into trial. How does that feel when you know that, like you said, you planted that seed, you've been in these parents' shoes and wanted answers and wanted a cure and wanted some sort of extra treatment? What is that like for you now to know that probably this year they will start clinical trials with a vaccine?
I mean, I'm full of hope. In my mind, it's sort of like the excitement and gratitude that we've been able to do it is also paired with just a frustrating sense of urgency. Like, once we knew that this was a possibility, we were ready. Like, can we start giving it to kids now? I mean, the number of families we've come to know and love who have lost their children, whose funerals we've attended, it's too many to count. And so I'm hopeful and we're ready yesterday. You know what I mean? Because there are kids literally waiting for this to see if it's successful. We hope that it will be. We know we're going to learn something. But I'm encouraged that it can start with, one family, one community, and really start to develop into something that is meaningful, that can be an option when those options run out.
Yeah. And one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is also because when he said that this is the only way this research was possible was for the funds that you raised. I was surprised as a parent. I think a lot of people who have been on a cancer journey aren't surprised, but I think a lot of parents out there would be surprised that if this happens to my kid, the government money isn't going toward research. It's all because of when you see Little Warrior or Alex's lemonade stand pop up, that is the driving force. Talk to me about what you've learned in terms of funding these research and these trials and getting cures for pediatric cancer.
Well, I can't tell you what it's like to get a cure yet, but but what I'll say, it's been such an education for us. The analogy I give people is like when your child's diagnosed, it's like you're in a burning building and you're like waiting for the fire department to show up and like there isn't anyone. And so you just you might be lucky and get out. And I feel like that's where we're sitting today. Lucy's, fortunately doing very well. But knowing that there's people still in there, you have to turn around and bring back the buckets of water. You have to show up and help because there isn't anybody showing up. The government is not showing up. There are not teams of clinical trials trying to cure bone cancer for children. It is falling on families. It is falling on private foundations. And then within that space, navigating the science because, okay, we raise, several $1 million. Now, how do you find the right thing to fund? And so that's where I think my husband, Piero, who's like our secret weapon, he's a scientist and now studies Ewing sarcoma at a local university, but he has become like this matchmaker where he is, reaching out to physicians all across the country, trying to find what are you doing and what are you doing and what stage is that molecule in? Because what we've realized is there's so much research that is in need. I mean, these doctors you don't go into treating childhood cancer or studying it without a heart for it. So they are walking saints, but they're all sort of competing for the same money because there's such a scarcity. And so what we've learned is you have to choose your projects really carefully. And where Little Warrior's chosen to focus is sort of like the go big, go home. Funding something that might extend life for 2 to 3 months is not a win. we've got to go big and kind of, put all the chips in on projects that we think can be the cure. The other thing is learning that even when there is a molecule sort of in that preclinical phase that maybe like in a petri dish still or in a mouse model that looks promising, it takes not just a couple million, tens of millions of dollars to develop that into humans. And so you would hope that the big money, like pharmaceutical companies, shows up and kind of picks up the torch and carries it through. But the reality is that they're responsible to their shareholders, and curing childhood cancer is not profitable. And so there is less of an incentive for them to reach in and develop a molecule that could cure cancer for 1,000 children in this country when, if they can treat a side effect for prostate cancer, there's a lot more money to be made.
When we come back, my conversation with Maggie continues, the message she wants every family to hear, and what you can do to help make change when it comes to pediatric cancer funding. Welcome back. We've been talking with Maggie Spada, founder of Little Warrior Foundation, an organization that raises funding for a rare type of pediatric cancer, Ewing sarcoma. If you're just joining us, she's been talking about how funding for pediatric cancers falls mostly on grassroots organizations. This interview is stemming from an interview that I did with a 12-year-old, Sasha Friedman, who is currently fighting for her life, diagnosed with Ewing at age 10. Take a look at part 2 of my interview with Maggie.
I want to speak to the parents out there. Mine are young. I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And so then when I'm talking to Julia and she says Sasha's diagnosed at 10, that could be me. And so what's within my power as somebody who is hearing about this and as people are watching and learning that this is an issue that maybe we've never really realized before, but that could be my kid one day. What is the power that we have as families? Like what should we be doing to make sure that this is a priority?
That's such a great question. Thank you for asking that. I feel, I'll tell you like maybe a silly example, but one thing that always strikes me is like in the past, our high schools, they have like a rivalry football game, right? And every October, they go pink. It's a pink out, right? It's for breast cancer awareness. I understand it. That is a serious condition. I know and love people who have battled it. But why isn't everybody going gold in September? Like children standing up for children, which has to be basically driven and supported by their parents, is one of, I think, the greatest things to see. And so I'll tell you yesterday, yesterday was Sunday, I was at an Irish dance festival, and the directors just said, we want to do something for childhood cancer. So it's going to be a gold out. Everyone is wearing gold. The winners of this competition are going to donate their prize money to your foundation. There are such simple ways, like children holding lemonade stands. Our website, if you go to littlewarrior.org/fundraise, we have like a list of just simple ways for families to get involved. And it all starts with awareness. Like none of us would know that breast cancer is pink unless everything started going pink. And then funds follow awareness. And so while not everybody can maybe donate $1 million to our cause, those little ripples of being able to shine a light on this is so important. And it doesn't take big sweeping actions. It can just be little things that are sprinkled in to just make sure it's in front of people. Because I think one of my biggest points of frustration amongst many of being in this space is the way that a lot of organizations or certain institutions sort of paint this picture and like wrap up childhood cancer with a bow. Like there's this, if you Google the survivorship of childhood cancer, it spits a number back out at you. It says, 85% of kids do okay, which is so bizarre because if you Google how survivable is adult cancer, there's no number, right? It's like, well, pancreatic's terrible and prostate cancer's this. And so why are we taking all of this and globbing it together and making it look glossy when the reality is 90% of kids with leukemia will be fine. And then the rest of these kids are suffering in the trenches. And so a long answer to your question, but I really do think it starts with awareness, and being able to just within your community weave it in, if that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were like before Lucy's journey, were you aware of any of this?
No. No, so I was just like everyone else, you know. I really, and I have my best friend from high school worked on the pediatric oncology ward. I mean, but you know, the headline is sort of like, look, you know, because of your donations, look how great we're doing, and it's a little bit of a misnomer. You know what I mean? It's not. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How's Lucy doing now? If you can go into
great.
that.
Yeah, she's doing great. She's 14 and a half. You know, will be facing side effects, future surgeries, you know, issues her whole life, but she's here, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Incredible that she beat some of the odds. Like, do you just sit there and marvel?
I don't dwell on it because I just feel like it's, you kind of the whole journey, you're walking a tightrope, and you know it's going to go one way or another, and that's all that really matters is in that moment. But I have such an awareness for the fact that it could have gone the other direction, and as I mentioned, we've come to know and love so many people, so we can't walk away. We just have to make it better for the next family.
I was so impressed with Maggie's statement right there. Make it better for the next family. I hope that this episode really opened your eyes to the fight that some of these kids are facing and how you can help make a difference. If you want to donate, check out littlewarrior.org or Cleveland Clinic Children's. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch Mom Squad. I'm Maureen Kyle. Check out our other episodes either on your local news streaming app or on our Mom Squad YouTube page. We'll see you back here next week.